Last week we posted a video on how to purchase land when you're broke. If this is your first time ever purchasing a piece of land, or this is your first time ever doing a land home deal, then tune in because this will probably be one of the more informative videos that you've watched thus far on the topic. We're big advocates for encouraging people to move to rural areas, and this is the reason why. The USDA has a program that's called a Rural Development Loan that incentivizes you to move to rural areas. What does this mean? You don't have to necessarily, when I say a rural area, move 100 miles outside of the city. You can simply move 35 or 40 miles outside of the city and still commute back to your job. But the USDA has a RD loan that incentivizes you to move to these areas. And the government will assist you, especially if you fall within a certain income bracket, to help you be able to purchase land in these areas. One of the incentives is they will completely eliminate your down payment. This is massive for families that are struggling. And I understand everyone is struggling, considering the price that rent continues to go up to, considering the prices that food continues to be risen up to, and everything is inflated for you. It's hard to save up a large sum of money just to be able to purchase a home. Well, the USDA has this program that helps you out with your down payment to where it can absolutely eliminate it for you, to where you don't have to come off with this massive amount of money up front for you to be able to move into a home. In many cases, this is much better than, or should I say in all cases, this is much better than even moving into an apartment. Because the average rent inside of America is between $1,700 and $2,100. They ask you to make 3 times a monthly rent per month to even qualify for a home. So for a lot of homes and a lot of property owners, or should I say a lot of renters, this is asking them to make $6,300 a month. Most Americans don't even make $6,300 a month just to be able to move into an apartment. Well, you can qualify for a home and be out of no pocket, because that apartment will ask you to pay your first and last month's rent and have that up front. You could possibly qualify for a home and not even be out of that much money at all, especially if you structure the deal to ask for the homeowner to pay for your closing costs. Now, a lot of people have asked the question, probably the number one question that we've gotten asked is, how do I purchase land if I have bad credit? And I understand, as crazy as things have gotten inside of this country, that bad credit is becoming a more regular occurrence, meaning people are having to dip into savings. People are having to dip into credit or try to access money that they don't have in order just to be able to survive. So if you have bad credit, you want to look into owner finance property, meaning you can go directly to an owner. You don't even have to deal with a major bank institution. You don't even have to deal with a realtor. You can deal directly with an owner and find out what this owner is willing to negotiate with you to purchase this piece of land. So look into owner finance property. Next, you want to make sure that this particular piece of land is not in a flood zone. Now, how do you do that? You simply go to FEMA.gov. The reason you want to avoid properties that are in flood zones is because whenever you go to insure whatever structure you've placed on that particular property, the insurance is going to be insane. Most homes or most manufactured homes or whatever you have placed on that property typically have a period of time that they make you have homeowners insurance. You don't want to get this piece of land. You don't want to get a structure placed on this piece of land just to find out that the insurance is absolutely insane. We're trying to save money here. I'm not trying to put you in a position that forces you to have even more money coming out of your pocket because you were simply uneducated on the topic. So make sure that you check the FEMA.gov website and find out if this piece of land that you're looking into purchasing is in a flood zone or not. Next, you want to make sure that this particular piece of land can pass a percolation test. And the reason that I say that is in most areas that people claim that are unrestricted, there are still restrictions. The government still, or the particular county still has rules and regulations that you have to abide by. It may not be as many in the city. I've lived in some cities where they won't even allow me to grow a garden in the backyard. So it may not be that strict, but there still are some regulations that you're going to have to pass. One being a percolation test. And what do I mean when I say a percolation test? Simply, does the ground have the ability to absorb moisture? Whenever you place a septic tank onto this particular piece of land, most counties want to know, hey, is this ground capable of absorbing this wastewater? We don't want wastewater sitting on top of the soil. Well, they'll send someone out to do a dig test and test your particular soil to find out if that wastewater can even be absorbed into the soil. You want to find out if this piece of land that you're purchasing either previously had a percolation test or is capable of passing a percolation test. If it had one in the past, or if I poured some water onto this ground, is it capable of absorbing this water? Is this hard, rocky soil? And I know for sure that water will sit on top of this soil for the next 2 days if it rains. That particular piece of land will not percolate. I know a lot of properties out in the Tennessee area, even some up in the Montana area, out on the West Coast. It's a lot of rocks on this particular piece of land, and it will not percolate out there. So you want to make sure that this particular land that you purchase will pass a percolation test. You also want to look into, is there an agricultural exemption already on this property? Particularly, we want to sort out or seek out land that has an agricultural exemption, because this is what will exempt you from having to pay a massive amount of money in taxes. And if you can avoid all of the crazy taxes, this is another way that you can save money. What you don't want to do is get a piece of land and find out later that, man, I can't even afford the taxes on it. I've seen the taxes range anywhere from a few $100s to several thousands of dollars. That's what you want to avoid. The agricultural exemption will exempt you from having to pay this extreme amount in taxes if you have something to give back to agriculture. If the land does not have an agricultural exemption, what can I do to have an agricultural exemption placed on this particular piece of land? And there are many different ways that you can go about it. If you produce hay on the land, you can be qualified for an agricultural exemption. If you have livestock on the land, it can qualify you for an agricultural exemption. Behind us, we have timber all over this land. We qualify for a timber agricultural exemption for forestry. So there are many different ways that you can qualify for an agricultural exemption, but this is something that preferably you would like to have already on the piece of property, so you're insulated from this massive inflated amount of taxes that everybody is having to pay, or you want to immediately start to seek an agricultural exemption to protect as much of your finances as possible. Next, you want to look into what is the value of this piece of land. We don't want to be overpaying for land, and this is especially for my people that are looking into owner finance property. You want to find out, how much is this piece of land worth? Is it worth $5,000 for an acre? Is it worth $10,000 for an acre? Is it worth $15,000 for an acre? And there are a couple of ways that you can go about this. One, you can have the property appraised and pay $300 or $400 for it. I typically wouldn't do that if I was in the worst financial situation, or I was in a situation that money isn't readily available to me. So the next way you can do this is simply going online to a site where they sell land. We'll use Zillow for an example, because a lot of people know about Zillow, and find out what the comparable price sales are around this particular piece of land that I want to purchase. Let's just say it's a 1 acre lot. What are the other 1 acre lots around me selling for? 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles out. Are they selling for $5,000 or are they selling for $10,000? Let's just say the average price of a 1 acre lot around me is $5,000 or $8,000. I don't want to be paying $10,000 or $20,000 for this piece of land. If the average price is $8,000, then can I get the piece of land for $7,000, $6,000, $4,000? Can I come in below current market value? That way I have at least some equity in this piece of property. We still want to approach it like it is an investment. Next, you want to find out if this particular piece of land is landlocked or not. Now, what do I mean when I say landlocked? Meaning, does it have road access? Does it have road frontage in front of the property? Or is there a driveway that leads you onto the property? Okay, who owns that driveway? Does the driveway belong to you, or does it cross over someone else's land before it gets to the potential piece of land that you want to purchase? This is extremely important. I've seen cases where people have purchased land only to find out later that the driveway that leads up to the piece of land does not belong to them. It didn't transfer over whenever they purchased the land, and it actually belongs to the neighbors. Now I have to go to the neighbors and negotiate with them whatever price or whatever the current market price is for me to get a 15, 20, 50-foot driveway cut there, or for me to use the driveway that's already there. We want to avoid this. If we purchase a piece of land, we want to be sure that this particular piece of land belongs to us and that we don't have to deal with these things. Last but not least, I would say the most important thing, if you're a new landowner, this is your first time purchasing a piece of land, or this is your first time doing a land home deal, I would say is get title insurance or use a title company. The title company is going to be what protects you in the case that something goes wrong. Now, what could possibly go wrong with you purchasing a piece of land? Meaning, the previous landowner had work done by a construction company. The previous landowner did not pay the construction owner. So the construction company placed a mechanics lien on this particular property. They did not tell me a lien was on this property, and when I purchased it, that lien transferred over to me, the new property owner. Now that construction company is coming after me to sue me or even take this piece of land from me to restore them what the last landowner did not pay them. The title company's responsibility is to go back and do research and make sure that this doesn't happen. And if it did slip through the cracks, they're going to be the one responsible for restoring that last construction owner. If the current landowner, or who is claiming to be the current landowner, doesn't even own the piece of property, it belongs to their mother or it belongs to their father, and somehow that slipped through the cracks and they sold it to me, that title company is the one that's going to be responsible for going back and doing the research to find out who owned this property from 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, and does it actually belong to them. And if something goes wrong, their insurance policy is going to be what covers you to keep you from having a complete loss in your investment. There's a link in the bio that you can click that will give you even more information on the topic. I am Aisha Yar, and this is the 40 Acre Comeback. We look to encourage more and more owners, especially amongst poor people, that are paying these ridiculous, astronomical prices when it comes to rent inside of the city. Look into other options. Look into taking your freedom back.